Hey people, welcome back to YT News. We are living in the hyper-political era where being politically correct is demanded. While SJWs are bitter and probably still typing mean comments on their keyboard, here's what gamers have to say about the unwarranted criticism. Number 5. Lack of women representation. The lack of female protagonists in video games is not news. When Red Dead Redemption 2 was about to be released, trailers, videos, and artworks were surfacing on the internet while anticipating the game to come out. The poster of the game had silhouettes of 7 figures that seemed to be of males. This is all that we need to trigger the justice seekers to call the outraged police. Mary Sue's company filed the campaign against the game, claiming it's perpetuating the sexist themes. This opinion was mirrored by many people on all social media platforms, by keyboard warriors who have nothing to do with video games.
Red Dead Redemption 2 is a highly anticipated game with a good amount of hype surrounding it. As with any hyped up game release, there has also been a fair amount of teaser content, artwork, and other press material released. Among that artwork, and one of the first hints at the game in general, a silhouette poster of 7 far-off figures, all of which, at first glance, appear to be male. Someone call the outrage police, and sure enough, within a matter of hours, the first outlet to condemn the game and make claims of sexism was the Mary Sue. But this attitude was quickly parroted across social media by many additional keyboard crusaders. Now, I know what most of you are thinking, this is old news, and you're right, this happened quite a long time ago. But to understand where we are headed, we must first understand the past and where we came from. And this seemed like a...
Number 4. Underlying racist tones. Many social justice warriors decided to dig deep to pull out something to hold a grudge against. They took Red Dead Redemption, the original, and picked out the character named Irish to prove the game has racist undertones. The claim is ridiculous, as the keyboard crusaders go out of their way to connect non-existent things and create problems. According to their assumptions, the character named Irish is often shown to be drunk and violent, which is a way to go against the Irish immigrants and perpetuating racist undertones. There have been other examples as well, where the soul seekers of justice have nitpicked from the harmless video games to blame it for racism.
To start, given its relevance. There have also been numerous connections drawn between Red Dead Redemption, the original, and racist undertones. Some believe that Rockstar has some secret, nefarious agenda to push by including a character named Irish who is frequently drunk. Or that they are prejudiced against Irish immigrants and are seeking to promote that mentality through their game design. It's hard for me to communicate right now.
Number 3. Limiting artist freedom. One of the biggest problems that video game players have with the social justice warriors is that they are ruining the way an artist or writer exercises their creative freedom and choices. By telling the artist what they ought to do to make the game more balanced is forcing them to stay in conformity and not work on what it is in their imagination. By dictating their own utopian fantasies, where there is more female representation, is unfair to the artist because he's the one working hard to develop something. And believe it or not, developing games is not something you can do overnight. Video game enthusiasts are not asking for much. They just want to know if a wider audience prefers a brilliant story that enthralls the player or the more socially acceptable ones that have an equal distribution of characters to ensure diversity.
Identify as a jar of pickles for all I know, and pretty soon it might be a hate crime for me to even assume their gender at all and use some improper pronouns, so I might go to jail. But hey, we're pretty okay with offending people in this video, so who gives a toot? But anyways, his advice is if Rockstar wants to make a successful video game, then they need to stick to that post-2000 formula. Trying to force artists, writers, and creators to conform to established standards is how we get stuck with garbage content being released. Would you rather...
Number 2. Inconsistency and uncertainty in arguments. This is where it gets really interesting. After years and years of criticizing the gaming community for not including enough diversity, the social justice warriors take a complete 180-degree turn when things happen that align with what they are saying. It's almost like they just want to create problems for the video game community. When Call of Duty 2 came out, the creators of the game worked their best to incorporate minorities to expand on the diversity factor. But their hard work went down the drain when the bitter and angry crowd accused the game team of forced representation. That doesn't even make sense. Their claim was that the representation is an incomplete picture that does more harm than good. It seems like they've forgotten that video games are just for entertainment. And they're not even supposed to be giving history lessons, yet the game is a brilliant attempt to cover the grounds.
The forced representation of diversity, which was nothing more than a marketing campaign. The article jumps from assumption to assumption, all the while pushing a narrative that an all-white production team simply included characters of color and female representation to mark off a checkbox and that they were not represented properly. The writer repeatedly levels insults at the game's creation team, essentially raking them over the coals for displaying any elements of historical accuracy, and that the inclusion of minority characters was forced, insincere, and tokenistic. World War II was a horrific event. Millions of people died and millions more experienced tragic and unmitigated loss in a war that will potentially remain the largest conflict in human history. Forcing a team of artists attempting to paint a picture of that time to conform to narrative inclusion standards has a negative impact on the entire experience and process.
Number 1. The fiasco of Resident Evil 5. When the video game Resident Evil 5 came out, the potentially woke men and women went into a proper frenzy and generated an uproar, all for a piece of very misinformed information. Basically, the game depicts dark-skinned zombies from which you're supposed to save yourself. And the SJWs took the skin color as an insult and started assuming that the game is trying to perpetuate blatant racism. However, some of the game enthusiasts said that if the game is not built with a racist intention, then it is simply not racist. While the others explain that when the game has covered the locations of Antarctica, Spain, and many other places, it's not like the game was specifically designed to hurt a certain community. It seems like the claims keep getting more and more ridiculous as the years pass by. Something that was simply created for fun is being linked to blatant racism, when clearly from the history of the game, it is pretty evident that the attempt is only to cover more spaces in the world to give a more holistic experience to the player. Just because a game is set in Africa doesn't make it inherently racist, and that's the whole point of this argument.
One of the most controversial was Resident Evil 5, which was based in a fictionalized part of Africa and had you fight against zombies with dark skin. Yet the way SJWs reacted to this, it seems to imply that we can't have video games set in the continent of Africa because doing so is inherently racist.
The most recent game I've played recently was probably Resident Evil 5. The bad guys in this game, which are all just Africans with spears, literal spears that they're chucking at you.
It's in Africa. It's been in Antarctica, it's been, I think, in Spain, it's been in the Midwest. It wasn't racist then, why should it be racist now? It's in Africa. Have fun with the game, play the game.
If location can make a game racist, then why isn't the Jewish community in an uproar over games that take...
These claims by SJWs are not strong enough to be backed by any factual data, and hence, they collapse and the gaming community lives on. Well, that's it for today. We will see you soon in another video. Until then, take care and goodbye.